Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 19th update on the tropics. As always, these thoughts are mine alone. And in making decisions regarding each of our systems, please refer to the National Hurricane Center and your local weather office for the best information pertaining to your area. Well, you can tell the Atlantic is still very active. We do have a couple of waves that aren't currently marked yet, but could probably get marked within the next couple of days. You have another one here. And then, of course, our two systems that we've been talking about for the past several days, Tropical Storm Grace and Tropical Storm Henri here. Well, we're going to talk about Grace first. It did hit the Yucatan Peninsula last night as a Category 1 with winds of 80 miles per hour. It is now exiting the Yucatan Peninsula as of the recording of this video and will be over the Bay of Campeche for about 30 hours, and it's in a pretty favorable environment for continued intensification here. It is going to have a lot of time to really reorganize and just re-strengthen. And we have recon inbound right now, which will tell us how well organized the core is. But if they find a well-defined core here, then it may be a little strong on the higher end of the intensity envelope for the system. But if it is not very well organized and the Yucatan Peninsula did a little more damage to the system's overall organization, then it'll take a little longer for the storm to get strong. And so, as far as the forecast period for the system goes, we do have probably another day before the system makes landfall, so we'll probably have another brief time covering it tomorrow. But other than that, we really kind of set in stone here. You have our hurricane warnings south of Tampico all the way to Veracruz here. It really is kind of set in stone at this point where the system is going to end up making landfall here, and you can see the very large tropical storm force wind field to the north, which is the reason for these tropical storm warnings from Tampico southward. So if you're in these areas, do need to be prepared for a hurricane strike. National Hurricane Center has this making landfall with winds of about 90 miles per hour or 85 miles per hour right now. And it could be anywhere between 75 and 100 miles per hour. This is not going to be something that is, insanely powerful for this region and unusual in terms of a hurricane strike, but it is going to be a pretty potent hurricane strike for the coastline that is currently hurricane warned here. So please do be preparing. Hopefully everyone is ready for the system to come in. After that, it should probably cross into the Eastern Pacific, maybe as a remnant, and will no longer be tracking it by then. But anyway, let's get into Henri here. Here is Tropical Storm Henri. We had a recon just get into the system and do a couple passes here. And you can see our system is starting to feel the effects of the shear that has been plaguing it for the past several days, as it has been interacting with the bulk of the anticyclone off to its immediate west and the flow that is associated with it that is coming out of the north. And this flow is actually a little bit diffluent, and that essentially means that the flow splits. So it comes out this way and it comes out this way. So these directions are not parallel and not converging. And so that allows for convection, as you can see here, to remain rather strong and continue to build and bubble, even though it is not very symmetric in terms of the convective presentation of the system. The recon plane only found 65 mile per hour winds in the system, and it's a little bit less intense than the National Hurricane Center had it pinned at prior to recon. Has a pressure of, we just look at this. We have a pressure around 998, 997 millibars. It is a little deeper than it was when recon got into the plane, but you can see a rather lopsided wind field here. You have mainly winds on the east side of the system and not a whole lot in terms of strong winds on the west side of the system here. So that indicates what the shear has been doing to the system, which is making it a little more asymmetric than what it would like if it were trying to intensify here. So it's going to be dealing with this shear for the next probably 18 hours. If we look back, we go back on the H-Wharf model run here. Let's go back here right now. you can see it's in this very strong belt of northeasterly flow. And actually, if we even look at the water vapor loop here, you can see this northeasterly flow very well defined by the cloud fragments moving in the general direction of the storm. And you can see that the upper level outflow is kind of flattened out here. And we do have G4 aircraft right in there right now, and it's currently making its loop around the system. And it has yet to sample this region of the storm's environment, and that's the region that is going to be imported into the system because of the direction of the shear. But you can see that this upper level ridge here that is rather well defined here, you can see this upper level ridge is moving off to the east here due to the upper trough that you can see in the far corner of the screen. That is also moving off to the east. And so if we go back to the H-Wharf model here, you can see that by tomorrow around this time, the ridge should be centered over Henri, and you have very strong channels of outflow that will be supporting the system. So it's hard for it to not strengthen at this point. It has a pretty good amount of time here to strengthen before it makes the turn off to the north. And this turn has produced some very volatile forecasting solutions here. We've been looking at the storm for the past several days, and you can see if we go back to current high pressure system here, you can see that we have our high pressure system, and then the trough that is approaching here, you can see it there. And as we go forward, this ridge essentially disappears, and we're left with the trough here. And you can see Henri much weaker on the GFS this time, rather than the previous run, which had it a little stronger here. And this does not have the recon data that we just got. The next couple of runs will have the recon data that we have, and that should provide a little more accurate of a depiction of what, or a more well-rounded depiction of what we should be expecting here. So we have our upper low as we advance in time, and you can see this is going to pinwheel the system up northward and begin to push the system up to the north. And then you can see as we advance, this upper level low is here. You have this upper level ridge off to the north and directing flow this way, and then you have the low directing flow this way. So if the system delays its turn, or there's four solutions here. So the system delays its turn and gets much to the south here before turning, then it would likely turn away from the coast. Now, if it turns a little sooner here and interacts with the upper level low, then it could get here and stall before turning. So we have a lot of solutions here, ranging from a Long Island landfall all the way to going out to sea within this circle of uncertainty here. And so we've had a lot of different solutions here. Remember, this is just one model run here, but you can see that the ridge stops it here. It kind of slows down, and then as the ridge drifts off to the east, the flow resumes coming out of the south again and pushes this back out to sea here and actually runs into Maine and runs directly into this ridge. But if we go back on the model run, you can see here the model brings it a lot closer, and this is due to the positioning of the ridge. It's just a little bit off to the west than it was. You can see just barely off to the west here, and you can see where the trough is. So it's the positioning of the trough, it's the positioning of the ridge, and it's the positioning of Henri here. And what exactly goes down between these three is going to really determine what impacts you see in New England. If you're in New England right now, you do need to be preparing regardless for whatever does end up coming your way, because the system will become rather large as it gains latitude here, and you will likely see winds far away from the core of the system here. And so expect a large wind field pushing a lot of water here. So if you're in a surge-prone area, do heed the warnings of your local officials as those warnings come out. If we look at the 5-day cone here, you can see the cone of uncertainty ranging from anywhere from Long Island to out to sea. and it really depends on how strong the system gets, how far the system, or how long it takes for the system to turn. Here, if you see the turn here, if it goes a little off to on the western side of this cone, then yes, it would come into New England and make a landfall here. The worst case scenario for this system, which is it's going to be very hard for this to happen. It's very hard for any solution really to happen because of the timing of all this steering being so fragile. The worst thing that could happen here is if, go back here, we have the interaction with the trough here, but it has enough time to come up north and not, it would stall over land rather than over water. And so we would have a legit hurricane making landfall here along the New England coastline here. So that would be very bad. And that landfall would likely be on Long Island if it were to happen. So if you are, again, I'm going to reiterate this, if you're anywhere from Atlantic Canada here, hold on, if you're anywhere from Atlantic Canada all the way up to like the eastern part of Nova Scotia here, and if you're even along the North Carolina coast, really, you do need to be watching for rip currents. This whole area really is going to get impacted by the system regardless of the exact track. There's definitely going to be enhanced swells, some windy conditions. It's going to be a rough go of it here over the next few days, and even for a 3-day forecast, this is pretty rough because, again, this is 72 hours here. You can see this on Levi's site here. And look at all the different solutions that the GFS has. You have the system either down here, up here, over there, or over here, and then over there. It's all over the place. And so this is a very uncertain forecast. Typically by now, on a 3-day forecast, you would have a little bit more certainty, but due to the complexities of the flow that is surrounding the system, it's going to be very difficult to pin this down, probably until the 48-hour period. So please do be preparing regardless of what ends up happening here. This is going to be a pretty significant event regardless, and especially if it comes ashore, this could become a pretty strong hurricane between the time that it starts jetting off to the north and current times. So please do be preparing, and please do watch the intensity of the system as it does come forward. We have the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service in New York. Please do be watching this. This is a very serious situation if it does in fact come up onto the coast here. And regardless of what happens, if it stalls off the coast here, like it does in this solution, there's going to be a ton of rain that is in this area. And this is a pretty significant amount of rain that would fall because of how slow it would move. And this is because it's running head on into the ridge, and so it's slowing down as it comes up here. So this would drop a lot of rain for this area here, and there'd be a lot of flooding in this area. And this is regardless of whether or not it makes landfall here. You see, it's still close to Nantucket here, and that would be a lot of wind and a lot of surge, regardless of, the weakening here. So, but the worst outcome would be if it comes up and doesn't slow down until it's over land. And that would bring all the effects of a hurricane here. But any situation where it is close to the coast, you're definitely going to be feeling impacts. So please do heed the warnings of your National Weather Service and your local authorities. That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching.